Yo, what's going on, man? We back. We back for another episode, man. This is episode 28. First of all, like, I'm here at episode 28. Yo, that means episode 30 is looming. So, I just want to say, like, I think I said the last episode, thank you, man. But, you know, I was really blessed to have I've been blessed to have a really good and solid audience, man. I really appreciate everybody who keeps listening and keeps coming back every week. You know, it's not easy. Like I said in previous episodes, it's not easy to do this on your own. But I really appreciate everybody. And sit here, we're recording this right now. You know, it means a lot. It means a lot because you go through a lot and you get here. And I've seen a lot of people come and go, but it's been good to be consistent. But first and foremost, this is episode 28. This is a big episode for me. I got a really, really dope guest. Her name is Jaz, aka, DJ Jaz. She's really dope, man. She just has so much information about the industry. Her story is really unique, and she just has a really interesting perspective. And one thing you guys are going to get from this episode is you're going to get an understanding about what kind of person she is. And you're also going to get just an idea about how to be connected. And she's a person who just knows how to connect people. She knows how to make the right connections. She took opportunities when she needed to, and she wasn't afraid to be a person who decided to step out and own her time. And I got to say, I respect that a lot. So with that said, man, enjoy the episode. Take a moment. Really enjoy it. Take the time to really listen to it. She's got a lot to say. And I'm just blessed that she came on the show, man. So you guys enjoy. You guys stay safe and take care now. Peace. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Brian Johnson Show. This is episode 28. And I am in a Starbucks in Midtown Manhattan right now with a lovely lady by the name of Jasmine.
Hello.
She is... exactly how should I describe you today? Before I go any further, I don't want to make any mistakes.
It's $1 million question. I would describe myself as a music executive.
Music executive, okay.
Very creative.
Yes.
And music is my passion. That's
music is your passion. Yes. Okay. So, she just described herself. But I met this young lady via Instagram. I started following her, and I started looking at her work, and I see that she is very much a mover. Like, she likes to move around. She likes to get things done. I could tell just from her Instagram. But, Instagram is just a snapshot of someone's life. So I decided to say, hey, why don't I have her on the show? She seems like she's really about her business. And I looked into a couple of her accounts, and I saw that she's really about it. So, welcome to the Brian Johnson Show.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. So, you started out, you're in the music business, right? Yes. So, tell me about it. How did you get started in this business?
I started as an intern.
Okay.
A long time ago when people still they were starting to call digital marketing, they would call it new media.
Yes, new media marketing.
Yes, because they didn't know what was going on.
No, they still don't know what's going on.
Most people don't. So I started interning at Def Jam.
Oh, wow.
That's how I started, yeah.
So this is circa what year around this time?
This is 2007.
2007. Did you go to college first and then jump into interning, or how did it work?
I was still in college. Well, it was like a summer internship.
Okay.
So it was in between my years.
What school did you go to?
Florida Atlantic.
Well, you went all the way to Florida.
I was in Florida.
Where are you originally from, if I may ask?
Originally from Paris.
Okay, Paris. Yes. Nice. So you left Paris and came to the States, and then?
I was in Paris, Spain, London.
You traveled a bit.
Couple places.
And then you came to the States.
And then to the States, yes.
And then you went to college in Florida.
Correct. Yeah. Yes.
How was it coming over to the States? Was that the first time you had been to the States when you started attending school here?
No, I've always traveled my entire life, as far as I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
So coming between New York, D.C.,
Yes.
California, Florida, all of those places, Chicago, growing up. And then I started school. I started school in Florida in middle school.
Okay.
And then, and then I would still travel, but not as much because I was, my parents wanted for me to be in school. So
Parents is all
actually
you.
have a school like to go to, and yeah.
Like, Hugh, go to school.
Yeah.
We like you,
Yeah.
but you need to go to school.
Yeah. Enough of the traveling to school.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when your parents told you to go to school, what made you pick the States?
Well, so my dad was working at the White House at the time.
Okay.
So we were between D.C. and Florida. Yes.
So you liked Florida. You found it interesting.
Warmer. By the beach.
That's a great selling point there.
Yes.
It's very nice.
Yes.
Warmth and sunny skies and,
Yeah.
and it rains occasionally.
Yes. Once a day for 10 minutes.
Once a
and it
day
goes
for
away.
10 minutes in Florida. That is damn true. That's why the car wash business definitely flourishes down there in Florida.
Yeah.
So you go out there. What made you decide to get into the music industry?
So it was interesting. I was in school. I got my bachelor's in finance and international business, not
Okay.
in music. And my goal was my purpose was to go to law school. That's what I thought I wanted to do.
Okay, be a lawyer. Parents would love that.
Yeah, and then I started a summer program they had at a law school in Florida, and it was just really boring.
Okay.
I just didn't like it.
Not creative enough for you.
Not creative. I was very bored. And then a really good friend of mine, she went to the same school, and
Right.
she was like, I just saw this program. It's a master's, but in the music industry. And she was like, it sounds like right up your alley, like everything you love, because I would go to concerts.
Who were you big into at that time?
So I had two great influences on my dad's side. I had the rock influence. Like
Okay.
he got to see Queen live, which I'm still very jealous
Wow.
of. And he plays the drums as well, so he would always listen to
So your
amazing
dad
music.
is straight up creative from the jump. So that's where you get it from.
Yes, 100%. Yes.
What was your mom like?
She's into music, but definitely dad is the big music influence.
I got you.
Yeah, and then my older brother, he was into hip hop, so I had both best of both worlds, right? So I had Wu-Tang and Nas, and then I had Queen and Metallica and Zeppelin. And
That's a hell of a dichotomy. You walk in one room, there's Queen playing, the next room there's Wu-Tang playing. Your brother's like, yeah, man, Method Man's the greatest.
Yes. Yes, and then I came into my own. I found like punk rock was my thing, so I was like really into the Clash and the Ramones.
I was about to ask you, did you
Yeah.
listen to the Ramones, yo?
Oh, yeah.
So right here, you're like
Oh, yeah.
in New York. It's like
This is it.
this is the home of it, basically.
Yes,
like you
yes.
got Iggy Punk, Deadhead, like you got a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get into this music and you decide to go take that journey.
Yes.
So where did that journey take you to exactly?
So it was a master's program. It was actually in business school. So
Okay.
it was an MBA, but just focusing in the music industry.
Right.
And at the time, I guess I didn't realize, or I didn't even think that I could work in music. I just thought it was something to do for fun because I love going to shows. I would always go to shows and end up making friends with whoever was working the show, whether
Right.
it's the tour manager or whomever.
And I got cool with people
Yeah,
ASAP.
I ended up backstage, by talking to people.
Right,
They would
right.
invite me to to things, and so it was for me. It was something for fun. I didn't realize I could do it as a job.
Yes.
So when I started, I went and talked to the program people, and it was led by a Grammy-winning producer, and he gave me so much insight as to how the actual industry of it works.
So this Grammy producer, was he a hip hop producer?
Yeah, no, he's actually a Grammy-winning producer more in the jingle side of the business, which
Okay,
is
okay.
a completely different industry.
All right.
From what I do now, but it was a good insight. So for me, I started the program,
Yes.
and we had a record label at the university.
Okay.
A student run, so I became the president of that label.
Wow.
And we would put out albums from the faculty, which was classical music, and also from the students, which was really fun.
That's a lot of moving around right there. yo.
Yeah.
So what was your first impression of the industry, the music industry, when you first got into it?
So when I first got into it, I was doing a lot of stuff in Florida, which is at the time was very removed from what I do
Right.
now. But it was very eye-opening because there was a very small publishing company in
okay.
Florida, but they own really cool catalog that they had bought. So that was again, totally different publishing side of the industry.
Publishing is a major thing, though.
It's major.
That's
where the money
that's
is.
what money is. So you got to learn that. That is like an ASAP education right there.
Yeah.
Always follow the money, as they say,
Exactly.
right? Always follow the money.
Yeah, so it was quite interesting to see that side of it. But I mean, I loved it right away,
Right,
and
right.
being able to have such a different, even from the faculty's releases that we were doing, that was in the classical world, right?
Right.
Totally different
Than hip-hop,
part.
yeah.
And then doing the students, which was either hip hop or
Yeah.
singer songwriter or rock
You should have
bands.
saw the way your face lit up when you said I loved it. Like you guys, I wish you guys could see it at home. Her eyes popped out of her head like I loved it. Okay, this is my shit. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was great. So I was just like, oh, I want more of this.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
So you got more and more into the business.
Yeah.
When was your first time you realized like, okay, this is what I really fucking want to do here?
I think it was when we had to put together an event as part of our assignments. So I also love fashion.
Okay.
So I was like, why don't we do a fashion show where I book the talents? So I booked.
Nice. Did you that? No, that was here.
That was in school.
That was in school.
That's
Okay,
in
so you're still in
school.
Florida at this point.
Yeah.
Wow, you're going forward in Florida right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and then I made friends with this really cool local band who actually ended up, they're not together anymore, but they ended up opening up for the Backstreet Boys, like on a huge tour, so.
Backstreet Boys, we're taking it back,
yeah. But it was great because at the time, like, I got them on, like, NBC, like, a local TV, like, all this kind of stuff.
So you're doing management stuff at that point. You're doing booking agent stuff right there.
I was doing it all, which is great.
That's like, really pulling at a lot of strings. Like, you're like, you're basically puppet master at that point because you got a whole bunch of strings you're pulling at. How did that moment of getting into that, like, how did that, like, did that, like, that kind of like essentially put you in, like, I'm in this now?
Yeah, it 100%. I was just like, this is cool. Like, I'm, getting to do really cool things and fun things. I'm enjoying it. And I was doing a little bit of everything because I was just learning, right? I didn't know, there's really no like real guidebook on, how to break an act. So, you do what you can. Right. So at the time I was like, oh, they need exposure. Let me put together this fashion show. And it was for charity and, it, kind of putting together all the aspects of it.
Wow.
So I pulled together this fashion show. We had a charity event. We had the band perform. We had DJ booked.
Nice.
All these things, and
you're doing this as a young lady. How was the business? How was the business receptive to a young lady doing this, coming in?
Some people are all about it. Some people are hesitant. And I was at school, so I think that they find it a little bit more lenient. Like, and you're like, they think like, it's for school, whatever. Right. But when they saw the results and they saw the money we raised, then hello.
Everybody's on it.
Yeah.
So how was your father? I guess your father was excited for you.
Yeah, my dad and my whole family has always been very supportive.
That's good. That's
which
good.
Is so important.
Right.
So he just thought it was cool that I was like doing things in music, and again, also maybe he didn't even realize that I could work and make a career in music. I don't play any instruments or sing or anything, so it's like, can you like make a living out of this? I don't know, but like you're having fun, so sure.
Such a dad, that's such a dad move. Like, I don't know if you can make money doing this, going over here, but just the guy saw you doing it. So what brought you to New York if you're down there in Florida making these moves?
So as I was in school, it was like, okay, how do I get like a real job right when I'm done with school? Okay, what do you need? An internship? You need to get experience. So at the time, I was like, okay, let me look where all my favorite artists are signed to.
Right.
Well, most of my favorite artists, and I found the label. It was Island After Music Group.
Nice.
And they had signed a lot of the artists that I loved at the time. So I applied for an internship for the summer, and I got it. And I got the summer internship, so I moved here for the summer. I stayed at the NYU dorms.
Did you? You always stay at the NYU dorms?
Yeah, on 3rd and 11th.
Did you know anybody in New York at that time?
I had like, I want to say like one friend, and she actually lived in Long Island, so not really New York City.
Yes, no. Yeah, so she's far away.
She's far,
so, oh man, that must have been.
Anyone.
So how did you start making friends and making relationships? Did you just start working with the other interns and you guys kind of became close?
Yeah, so definitely the other interns at Island Def Jam and the employees at Island Def Jam were great too, where they would invite me to things and all of that fun stuff. And then at the dorm, made a few friends as well.
Nice.
And then I just started my circle in the music industry from that day on.
How did you find the business? I guess at that point you're switching into hip hop. What was the difference that you saw right away?
Definitely the more like chill back
vibe.
Vibe. Yeah, like chill, laid back vibe of everybody.
Did 5 o'clock mean 5 o'clock, or does 5 o'clock really mean like 6 o'clock if someone's going to show up?
We were there always there late. Like our technical intern hours were probably from like, I don't know, 10 to 6, something like that. But I remember we were always there. Like, and then there's always shows that, of course, a new person in New York City who loves music and you're getting invited to shows like your favorite artists. You're like, hell yeah, I'm gonna go. And then they start at 2 a.m.
What in the business, did you meet any people that you were just like struck by, like, oh snap, I'm really in the room with this dude, like, whoa, or this chick? for God's sake.
Yeah. I mean, I think my first day as an intern, I had to do an errand for Jay-Z.
Oh, wow.
So that was fun. And so that was great. And then I think that first week also, there was a big concert at MSG. So it's Island Def Jam. So there was a big concert from Bon Jovi.
Right.
Sold out MSG show.
Nice.
So as an intern, getting to go to do that. And actually that show was being filmed for a DVD. So I'm somewhere in the footage. You'll see me there. I appear a few times.
Living your life.
But as an intern, that's amazing.
Yes, as an intern, that's definitely amazing.
Yeah.
So as an intern, you're at the bottom of the totem pole, but you're gaining all these experiences. How was it for you? Did your people say, "Wait, are you getting paid? Are you getting paid?"
I wasn't getting paid as an intern. No.
Right. So I'm guessing your people was like, "Hey, so when are you gonna start making money doing this?"
Right.
Did that come about? I'm guessing that from your family and everything. They've been supportive, but I'm guessing they're asking like, "Yo, what's going on?"
Not yet, because it was an internship, and we like most internships are unpaid.
Right,
unless probably
right.
you're in finance or things like that. So not yet, and not at that point.
Right.
But it was interesting because at that point, as an intern, my creative mind, I guess, I started making MySpace pages for artists and starting getting paid that way.
That's dope. That is dope. That's talk about learning new media right off the bat.
Yes.
Like the last person I had on the podcast, my man Billy Jones, shout out to Billy J. He was helping with artists setting up their new media as well, because he definitely started out as an intern as well. He started out back in the 2000s. And he definitely was talking about how he was setting up like accounts, like widget accounts and everything to put on their stuff on their pages and everything.
Yes.
I was just, back then, I was just using MySpace. I was worried about my top 8. Like, okay, you guys, somebody's feeling away because they're not in my top 8. You're not top? Okay, my bad. But now you're talking about working with artists and creating their pages.
Yeah.
What gave you the inkling to even do that? Or they just was like, yo, we need new media. Yo, you, over there, go do it.
So how it happened is, at the label, it was new to them as well, but they knew they needed it. So the interns, we started making the MySpace pages for the artists signed on the label. So I was like running Mariah Carey's, and my friend was running Rihanna's, and it was funny talking of top 8. You would go to these big artist pages, and every week one of us, like, we take turns with the interns being the top on the top 8 of these artists.
That's so cool.
So you would go to JC's page, and you would have Kanye, Rihanna, and then the top 8 corner was DJ Jazzy, and then Clep, like all the interns. So yeah. But so as I was doing these at the label for these signed artists. I was also always big into music, so I would be listening on my profile, and then I would find artists that I liked personally, and I would message them. It was like, oh, I can make your MySpace page, and then these turned out to be artists that ended up being signed later on, or artists that you probably heard of now.
So you were doing like a little bit of an AR thing, A&R thing, right? That's what it's called. Yes. So that meant that. That's that's boss. That's a boss move, because most people don't think about doing that. Yeah. They don't want to reach out to someone just if you're not getting paid right away.
Right.
But you're doing that.
Yeah.
That takes balls. That takes a lot of balls. That's dope. That's really, really dope. Yeah. So when it was your first time when you finally reached out and got your first gig? Like, okay, you know what? We're gonna pay her. She's gonna do this right here in the hip hop world.
It was actually through Def Jam. When my internship was over, I had to go back to Florida. I had 1 year left of school. So they liked me so much that they were like, since you're in Florida, there's stuff you can do from home because it's the internet, so you technically don't need to be here. So they hired me, Def Jam hired me to do things from home in Florida while I was finishing my last year of school. So I was back in Florida working.
So while all the other homies are jostling for jobs, you're like, I work for Def Jam. I'm at home. Don't talk to me. Don't talk. I'm on the beach with my laptop. Don't talk to me, peasants.
Yes.
So how was that transition now that you're working from home, you're working, now you're working remotely, obviously.
Yeah.
You're no longer in the office. You're no longer in this kind of scene out here in New York. What was like that coming back home after being here for so long doing that?
So, definitely of adjustment, but it was great because I was getting paid to do something amazing that I loved. And, I was still in school also. So, I, of course, still had to finish that. And it was a priority to finish my MBA. So it was balancing both.
That balance is real.
Yeah, and it was interesting too because then I had classes and I was like, oh, I'm already getting paid to work in the music industry, so. But
I could teach you guys a thing or two
yeah,
here. Let me run a class.
Yeah, but for me it was very important to finish school, so I did want to do that, so I finished it.
Right.
And so what was great is as soon as I graduated, Def Jam offered me a job here in New York, and they moved me from Florida to New York, and here we are.
Wow. So how was the industry changing with new media? Obviously, new media was changing because I remember if it was MySpace, it was before Facebook.
Yeah.
And that's before we had Twitter.
Yes.
And before World Star took hold.
Yes. Before all of them.
So how was that coming into that place? So you're still in Florida at this time, right?
Yeah.
When did you decide that, all right, maybe I need to change, or maybe I need to go somewhere else? Did you think, are you going to go somewhere else, or did you get an opportunity?
Well, I always knew I wanted to move to New York.
Mm-hmm.
I always knew I wanted to live in New York at one point in my life. So for me, it was finishing school and then moving to New York. And then I was lucky that I was able to move to New York with a job, and a job moved me to New York instead of having to come here and find a job.
You're one of the lucky few.
Yes.
Who come in, people come here broke as hell because they spend all their money for their apartment.
To move here, yeah, exactly.
Man.
So I came here. They moved me, so I had a job, and it was great. Can't complain with that one. So I was like one of the lucky interns that got a job after their internship.
Where did you live when you first moved to New York?
I first 74th and 1st. Yes.
So okay. So how was this transitioning? I'm coming from Florida. We're talking about a lot of transitions because you moved. Mm-hmm. You've been in places. It had to be a cultural thing. How was it's one thing to live in New York and you live in a dorm.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
And you're moving around. Life is sweet.
Yeah.
But now you live on your own.
Yes.
Now this is your first place on your own?
In Florida, in college, I had my own place.
Place. Yeah. But now you're living in a completely different environment.
Yes.
Did you have roommates or it was just by yourself?
By myself, yeah.
How was that?
So it was definitely 2 words: great and scary at the same time.
If you guys could see how much she's hesitating, she's like, I don't even know how to really say this.
So great and scary because, of course, I'm on my own. I'm in New York City. I've always wanted to live here. I have a great job that I love. I'm having the best time of my life. Getting to every morning go to work and be with musicians I admire, and then go see them live, and then do cool things. Do cool campaigns, all that stuff. That's awesome.
Living that life, man.
Living that life, and then it's also New York. I'm a female. I'm tiny, as you can see.
Yes.
Living here by myself. The first winter, it's cold. I've been to New York before, but like you said, living here, it's totally different than just coming for a little bit, and but no, I loved it, and I adjusted well, and I was lucky to have really good friends.
How was the relationships for you? Because you've been moving back and forth a little bit, so you had to have like a lot of friends in different places.
Which was great. And I like New York. I had the people that I had interned with the summer before, but like people that worked at Island Def Jam, they became friends and family to this day. So it was a great start to amazing relationships, friendships, and
probably helped you out throughout your career.
And like outside of work,
right.
like somebody just got married 2 weekends ago. That's why I was here 2 weeks ago for a wedding, and it was great to see a lot of people that I hadn't seen in a while.
Yeah.
So moving here by myself, it's always scary because like on my own, like, and I didn't have family here either. So it's like it's the first time that family wasn't as close.
Yeah.
By myself, new job, new everything.
Right.
Not driving a car after being used to driving a car. All those little things. Taking
your
public
subway life.
Yeah. Getting used to like the subway in the winter and the snow.
And that subway way it smells in the summer,
yes.
boy. That you gotta get used to that smell in the summer. You're like, oh.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Snowstorms, all that fun stuff. But I got used to it, and I love New York, and I love the energy of the city. And every time I'm away for too long, I have to come back and get that energy boost. So I love New York.
So as you're going through in the business, and you're working at Island Def Jam, how was the business starting to change?
I mean, for for us, and even till this day, I think every day there's something new and different. You know, we were talking about like all the different platforms there were. So like, yeah, I started with MySpace, and then Facebook started. But when Facebook started, it was just for your friends, and there weren't Facebook pages. I started Facebook groups for musicians because that was the only way to like message a bunch of people at the same time.
Facebook kind of changed the landscape at that point because it became
did.
more interactive than ever before.
Than ever, but you know, it's funny because there were so many other platforms throughout the years that we would try. So I had an account on everything. So I was like, I mean, Friendster,
Yeah,
High
the Tumblr,
Five, yeah,
Tumblr.
like literally everything. And you know, it was like it's Twitter. And I remember when Twitter started, I remember sending an email out to like my department saying like, oh, we should get our artists on Twitter. You know, like we should message them and
majorly should get them on Twitter right away.
You know, things like that. And then you know, and then I got to work with Facebook when they launched Facebook pages, which was great, and give them feedback. And you know, I still work with them to this day. And so it was great evolution, and every day has changed. And to see like, you know, how much at the time it was like iTunes selling music, right? Be on the homepage because they're selling music. Now, you know, they're still selling music, but nobody's really buying it, right? You're streaming it. But
everyone's streaming it. I'll be honest with you. When people buy records, it's very, very rare these days.
Very rare. And then like, it's funny, you see like the ones that have like the 10 downloads, and you know, that's like your parents and your family.
It's true.
But yeah, so to see the transition, and even streaming, like, you know, I got to test Spotify in the States before it was available in the States. And, you know, like it was only available in Sweden, and we had a Spotify account, so to test that. So we got to see all these changes as it came, you know, with YouTube as well, like putting the music up on YouTube, you know, and some things would get taken down, you know, there's all these things. But
how did you feel about like the level? How did you feel about the level of transition that came in at that time? Like, because I know that the music business was like, it was booming.
Yeah.
At one point, everybody's making money,
Yeah.
everybody's getting paid, but then the recession did happen.
Yeah.
And things began to change over. People began to change into a different stage. Did you, how can I put this? Did you see any of this coming down the road, or did you kind of was just like blindsided by it?
I think personally, I saw it because being the right age group, it was how I was consuming music, right? And if it was like, obviously through work, I got free music here and there and things like that, but I saw how my friends did it. And then, you know, when I would go back to Florida for like, let's say the holidays, and I was like, oh, how do you guys finding out about music? How are you consuming it? I could see the difference.
Yeah.
And then I could see at work, like they weren't marketing that way. They were still marketing the old way, you know.
Yeah, it takes a long time for the machine to change.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was in my department, it was our job to start marketing that way. And that was great because, you know, everybody in my department, we were on the same page, and we were always coming up with new creative ideas. But then it was like our department was on board, but now it's getting the rest of the company on the same page, and that takes time. So I, you know, we could see it, and you know, we're getting the feedback straight from people because we were online seeing what the fans who are purchasing and consuming this music are saying.
So you're like right there. It's happening in front of your face.
Us, yeah, right in front of us.
I think the iPhone had a big impact, much bigger than people really give it credit for, because consuming music prior to that, everybody just consumed it like. You would get an MP3 player, obviously, but you still had to purchase the music, or you wouldn't download it illegally. But Napster, and then all of a sudden, your phone was like a central part because you could do everything from your phone.
Yeah.
And now it's like you don't even purchase music; you just stream everything connected to your car, and you're gone.
Yeah, we have every single song available to us, and you know, on our fingertips right here. this little machine right here.
Right. So while you're at Def Jam, you're making your relationships, you're going through things, and you're talking to the people. When did you start thinking about doing things for you?
So naturally, I've always had people come to me and ask me to help them with things. Like I'm a connector, that's what I like to say, because I always, if I see an opportunity, like, oh, you should meet this person because you two would do great things together. I always naturally just do that. So I
can see that happening with you.
So I had always been doing that, just like naturally, not even thinking about it or having a grand plan behind it. And then so throughout the years while I was at Def Jam and everything, people would come up to me and ask me for things here and there. So I kind of started doing that without knowing it really.
But that's the best way. That's the best way it happens.
Yeah, and that was like kind of the base of like doing my own business, because throughout all these years I had been connecting people and making things happen for them and helping them succeed in what they wanted to. That it just became a natural fit and a natural next step for me.
I think that it speaks to you because when I touched you and everything, you had like the OD, like you could feel like the genuineness off you, like even off the text, and I was just like, oh, she's not industry at all. She's not even trying to give me the bull. She's like, yeah, I'll check it out right now.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, okay, because you get a lot of when you reach out to people to do things.
Sure.
You get a lot of people who are just going to give you the industry talk immediately. Like, yo, yeah, just send me this, send me that. And I'm like, nah, man, like, I'm right here. You can engage with me right here. Don't be afraid. I'm not afraid. And that's one thing about you. I could tell, like, you're not afraid of these things. You're not afraid to engage with people and everything. I think that probably served you well.
Yeah.
As you going. When did you start, like, getting self-aware of that ability to engage with people?
I think, I don't know if there's like an exact moment, but I think I've always had it in the fact that with musicians are such a complicated machine that getting along with them so easily and being able to connect with them, it just came so naturally. That's I think when I knew it was like, oh, I can connect with all these musicians that are so different, and you know they're obviously so talented and have these amazing visions, and we can connect. And I think that's when I realized like, oh, I can do this with anybody, right? If I can talk to this amazing musician that I admire and it's just having a conversation like we're having right now, I can do that with anybody. So that people ask me too, like, do you get starstruck? I'm like, no, because they're just people like you and myself. So no. But
they put their pants on one leg at a time, like everybody else.
Yeah, and but you know, it's having these conversations and being able to connect, and like to me that comes so easy that I can talk to any musician, I can talk to anybody on the street, and like you know, not get nervous, not get shy, and just come up with something to say.
I've definitely felt the same way about doing business with people because I've connected with a lot of people and done a lot of things in that nature, and it's just it's a blessing. It can also be a curse sometimes because sometimes you interact with the wrong person. You're just like, okay, this was a bad deal. I shouldn't have done this.
Yes.
Did you ever have any ups like any lows while you were in your process coming to this place, coming back and being in New York and working? Did you ever have any lows where you're like, yo, I'm thinking about to go back to Florida. I don't want to deal with this shit.
Luckily, I never had a moment where I was like, I want to like go back to Florida and do that. You know, of course, I had bad days like anybody.
Sure, who doesn't have a bad day?
Exactly, but never enough, I guess, to be like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore.
So you stayed focused on it.
Yeah, I stayed focused, and you know, I love it, and I feel thankful and grateful that I get to do what I love. And just thinking back, the other path that had an egg on this path, I would be a lawyer. I would have a firm in Florida and Boca.
You'd be bored as hell.
I'd be bored. I'd be overworked, overtired, and probably hating life. So
I'll take this. I'll take this.
So,
I'll take this little bit of madness for this little bit of freedom.
And I think I thrive on that madness and the craziness of working with musicians, right? I think that's
you have to be a little
you
have to be a little nutty to deal with.
Yes.
Some days, I mean, between just dealing with they're having a bad day, and you'll be like, oh. So you were working in the media. Did you ever think about becoming a manager or a representation for artists?
I've been asked throughout the years, and while I was at Island FM, I was asked by a few people, and I consider it, but I really like what I do. And being a manager, it's such a different type of relationship with an artist. I have managed artists before, and I manage a couple artists now, and I love it. But it's a very different type of relationship, so it has to be with the right artist.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So it's not like out and out, this is my management firm, this is what I do.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, hey, I work with this person.
Yes.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So now, I do marketing for musicians. That's what my agency mostly does. And I work with musicians that I love and I believe in.
Yes.
The ones that I do manage, it's a different type of relationship, and it's more of a partnership.
Right.
So, but
it's not you sitting them over here, and sitting them like that.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any complications dealing with managers of artists because you're managing their accounts? Did you ever have like that back and forth with them, like, yo, this is gonna work, I don't know why you telling me to post this?
Yeah, there's definitely hesitation from some managers or artists sometimes themselves directly, and it's my job to guide them and kind of let them see why I think we should do it the way I'm suggesting. And sometimes they'll agree with you, and sometimes they don't, and sometimes you're right, and sometimes they're right, and sometimes we're both wrong, So that's the thing with what we do is like I said, there was no guidebook, so even I could really believe that what I'm saying is going to be right, but then maybe I was wrong because
Yeah.
there's a million other factors
That second guess can be a problem, boy.
And
Sometimes you second guess yourself and you're like, why did I do that? I should have just done it.
And there could have been a million other factors that I didn't even see coming, right? That just happened. So there has been times, and with social media especially, it's so personal to an artist, right? Because it's another way of them speaking their beliefs and their thoughts. So sometimes there's
the Twitter needs to be taken away.
Exactly.
Kanye West.
Yes. And other people.
Yes, quite a few people.
but you know that's what we do, but that's the fun of it, to try new things and see what works, and you know you have to find what works for your audience, what doesn't work for your audience.
When you feel, how was it for you as a woman you're working in this business and you're moving forward, and did you run into interference from people because they see you moving and doing your thing?
Oh, yeah. Yes, I've been in many rooms where I'm not only probably the only female in the room, but I'm also probably the youngest person in the room. So that's like a double.
So you catching the shots, boy.
Yeah, I'm like a boxer, like fighting them left and right.
So you're like what? You're cusp millennial or not millennial? I don't even know what
okay. Yeah. And but you know, sometimes you're in these rooms that unfortunately a lot of, for bigger artists, there's still like the old mentality of like radio type. I'll leave it at that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're still stuck in that world where they think that's pop. Oh
yeah,
my God.
So,
okay, go ahead.
So you kind of have to like, you know, pick your battles really, and see like, no, I really believe this is what's going to work for this artist because X, Y, Z, and then you fight your battle and you present your case.
Yes.
But the thing for me, and I tell this to all the girls that I mentor and whoever I talk to, is like, I can walk into any room. No matter who's there, they could be more experienced. They can have won, you know, Grammys, whatever.
Right.
But I know my stuff.
Yes.
So I'm walking in confident that I know what I'm talking about, and I may not know what a Grammy-winning person knows. You know, obviously, like I'm not a composer, but I know my stuff, and I know they don't know what I know. So we're both in that room for a reason.
So at the end of the day, this is my game.
Exactly.
Okay, you guys are just in the room. You don't even understand what's going on right now.
So, and then, you know, some people are smart enough to listen and try to understand, and some do understand it at the end of the day. Some still don't understand it, which is fine. You know, it's like the same, like, I don't know how to play the piano, like, and I probably never will, because, right? So,
that's not your thing.
Because it's not my thing, and I don't take the time to understand it and learn it. So the same goes for them. But it's nice to know that there can be that place where we meet in the middle, and you know, both sides can come out of it. So
I think that's dope that you can be in that room though, because there's not a lot of people period of your gender that gets into that room.
Yeah.
And if they are in that room, sometimes they're marginalized.
Yeah.
And
they're too afraid to speak up, even.
Very afraid to speak up because they don't want to lose their job.
Yeah.
They want to lose their job. And with this climate that we're in, with the Me Too movement and everything going on, it's a very sensitive time.
Yes.
Very sensitive time. So you're in. So I can make sure I got a timeline right. You're still at Def Jam. When did it what time in your life did you decide that, okay, I'm going off on my own?
So that was also not technically planned, which is funny. But so what happened is, not sure how familiar you are with music labels and the reshuffling, but Island, Def Jam split up into two different labels. So that happened, and that was kind of like when everything kind of like started just changing.
Yes.
And you know, artists that I worked with for many years got moved to other labels or got reshuffled or different teams and things like that, where it was just like they were coming to me and asking for help, and me as a nice person and a friend, I would be like, yeah, sure, I'll help you. They'd be like, oh, my single comes out Friday and I don't have Shazam campaign, help. And I was like, okay, I'll do it for you. You know, things like that.
But at that time you had solidified a lot of relationships at that point.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah.
So you were on call with a lot of people. Like I can make that call and make that happen.
Exactly.
For you. Okay.
Yeah. So that's how it started, and before I knew it, I was doing those little favors here and there for like 10 artists. And then I was like, wait a second, I'm doing this for all these people.
Right.
This can be like
but
my
that's
full-time
different than a
job.
publicist. You're not necessarily a publicist. No.
Yeah, it's different. So
Yeah.
it's marketing, right? It's coming up with custom campaigns for the
Yes.
marketing. Whether it's an album, a
Your
single,
campaign
a tour.
building, basically.
Yeah. And so that's kind of how it happened, where I was doing it for all these artists, and I was like, wait, I can kind of do this like as a full-time
Were your
job.
homies around you saying, "Yo, girl, you're doing all this work for these people. You need to start like doing your own thing, like for real, or was it just you came up with it? But did the homies around you be like, "Yo"?
I came up with it because it was just something that like it felt natural.
Okay.
It felt natural to do, and and it just kind of happened, and I wasn't even like broadcasting like, hey, I'm doing this on my own, like I need clients.
Not walking around
like
with a sign like, "We'll work."
Yeah. So it just kind of like I already had those few artists to start with already.
Yeah.
And then so it just became a natural progression, and it started with those 10 or so artists, where then they had other friends, and they were like, oh, Jaz is helping me with this. You should hit her up for this.
Right.
And just that's kind of how it happened.
Nice.
Yeah.
So basically, you were just like running it in there. So you started the agency. You start the agency. How was it? Like you're out there, you're moving around and stuff, but now you're like a businesswoman on her own.
Yeah.
How was it? Was it scary for you?
I think everything was moving so fast that I didn't have time to be scared, to like sit down and think about it and be scared.
Yeah.
Things were just moving so fast.
Stop thinking about it. You just doing it.
Yeah, I was just doing it.
You were on autopilot.
Yeah.
That's what they call it.
Exactly. I was just, going here, going there. I was working a tour, so I was, I was on the road for a little bit. It was just one thing after the other, where like artists work in cycles. So it was like, oh, this album cycle ended, but then I have 3 more starting before this one ends. So it.
How did you manage your business-wise, like your paperwork and
Sure.
everything else like that? I know that had to be like, what the hell? Like, I got to do all this? Taxes and shit like that?
Yeah, that was never fun.
No. As a now being an independent person, I completely understand why the CPAs exist now.
Yeah,
now I get it. Now I get it.
So I listen to a lot of interviews or successful business people, and what most of them say is like things like taxes. Hire somebody to do them, because if you try to do them, that's taking most of your valuable time and wasting into something that somebody else can do a lot quicker.
I read in a book years ago, tell you what you can't do, hire somebody that can do it, and make sure they can do it better than you. And that's pretty much what the business world is like.
And that's how I function. Like things like taxes that I don't care to learn how to do. Hire somebody to help me do those things. So so that on those business things, yes, hire somebody. And then now, thankfully, I have a team of people that like my team is growing. So that's great. So I have more time to do other things.
Yes.
So that's how I balance it now. Yeah.
Having a team is super important.
Yes.
As a dude who does photography and video work and podcast work, I don't have a team, and I do this on my own. So I know the value of having a team, having somebody there to take care of it, because there's a lot of times where it's like, I'm up at 7 in the morning, I'm not in bed until like 2 o'clock in the morning, because I'm taking care of so many things. Everything. Like, I got 20 different calls. Hey, you can shoot? Can you do this? Can you do that? The value of having somebody there to rely upon is crazy. People always want that.
Yes.
People always want that. So you mentioned earlier that you mentor.
Yes.
So how did we get there?
So that started started on Facebook.
Okay. How do we always end up back here?
Always back to Facebook.
Look at social media rules.
Yes, but it started on Facebook, where basically because I've been on it for so long, I had these groups that I had started, and I'm not really active on it, but they started getting people like liking it.
The traction was going.
Yeah, and so then one of these groups, somebody messaged me, and they were like, "Oh, I see you work in music. Can I ask your advice for something?" And much like you messaged me, I read it and I answered.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much value in that. I read and answered. Oh, it works so good.
And, I answered this message, and it was a young girl. She was probably 18, and she had a question, like, didn't know how to handle a situation.
Right.
And then I gave her my opinion, and I was like, this is what I would do. And then I saw the message, and that helped her, and then she messaged me later, and it was like, your advice helped. And I was like, oh, cool. And then I saw there's a lot of Facebook groups of people who want to work in the music industry. And then there's a few that are specific to females. So then I got invited to join a few of them.
Right.
And then every now and then people would message me asking, or they would post like, hey, I'm having this issue, whatever it might be,
Right.
XYZ. And then so I would answer. And then that just kind of happened. And then I started to get a couple to like, hey, do you want to meet in person for a coffee? And like, I need advice
So
on this.
you became an industry counselor.
Basically, yes. Here's my talk show.
Yes, yes.
Dr. Jaz.
Send the money. No,
But yeah, so but you know, it's been great because, you know, speaking of Me Too earlier, a lot of these girls who are young from probably like middle America don't know what's right and what's wrong, and they obviously have a feeling.
Right.
But there's even been times where there was this one guy who kept messaging these girls and saying like, hey, I need a tour assistant for this big tour. He said a big name. And then the questions he was asking on the interview were like a little weird. So then they posted his screenshot, and I was like,
Oh, wow.
I know who the artist is that he's claiming to work for.
Yeah.
I'm going to find out if he's really working for this artist, because he's also saying his name, so that's not cool either way. If he does work for him, he should not be posting this.
No.
And
No, he should not.
If he doesn't work for him, he also should not be posting this. So
Words called sue for defamation.
Yeah. So I found out, and he wasn't working on the scamp, and he was doing this, sending LinkedIn messages. So
wow.
I have a friend LinkedIn and said, this is the situation. I think this guy should be blocked from LinkedIn. And they blocked his profile because he was sending very inappropriate messages to girls saying he needed a tour assistant.
Asking him
it was
how do you look physically and
or
everything.
it was mandatory to share a room with him. Yeah,
what?
right? Yeah.
Mandatory?
So,
But who has the balls to say some shit like that?
Exactly. And he was writing it on LinkedIn. So, yeah.
Yo,
smart guy.
That guy, yeah, dumbass.
So things like that.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of how it started, because that just annoyed me that he would like do that.
Yeah.
Like just on a personal level, it's like, first you're using this artist's name, which you shouldn't be, and you're writing these awful things to young girls who person who doesn't know better,
right,
or who has a bad home situation might think this is real and might be desperate enough to need that.
That's the
situation.
predators.
Yeah.
There's predators in the industry. There's tons of people who have, we call I just call them, you got a fake industry plug. Like you maybe you promoted at a club that the artist showed up, but you weren't even the lead promoter. You were the B promoter or C promoter.
Yeah.
You were just on the team of promoters. I always say in the industry, you gotta check for receipts.
Yeah.
You gotta be careful. You gotta basically in this day and age, you gotta scrub their Instagram, scrub their social media, and be like, okay, well, he's got a picture of him. He can take a picture in a club with an artist, with Rick Ross, for God's sake, anybody, and all of a sudden say that's my man.
Sure.
That's not your man.
Yeah.
You took a picture with him in a club, fam.
Yeah, he doesn't know your name.
He doesn't even know your name.
Yeah.
Did you run into that a lot? Like false, like guys playing the false role?
Oh yeah, and especially through that group, because now it's become a habit on that group of people posting screenshots to say if they're real or not. You know, like, is this real or is this
receipt checking?
Yeah. So yeah, and I think that happens a lot.
Yeah.
And again, especially people being predators against naive people or people who just don't know any better.
Facts. They'll take you for your money. They'll take you for your pride. It's all the same.
It's all the same. So yeah, so that's kind of how it started. And so I mentored girls, at any given time, 3 or 4 at a time. And it's mostly like either checking in because they want to work in the music industry, whether as a musician or in the business side of it.
Right.
And it's just like giving advice just based on my experiences, or like I was saying earlier, connecting them. Like somebody just graduated from school and they need an internship.
Right.
So I was able to get them a paid internship through somebody else I know. So it's just like even something as simple as forwarding an email with a resume to somebody I know, like, hey, this is the person I've been talking to.
That's amazing, yo. Because not many people want to even give back, but not many people charge for what you do. Just for that.
Yeah.
Just to say, oh, you want me to send a resume? $20, $30
Yeah.
just to do that.
Yeah, which is crazy.
It is crazy. People will fall for it,
Yeah.
though, because, there's people out there who write resumes for people, which I think is dope.
Yeah.
I don't get me wrong. But I think when people go to the extreme of like, well, I'll polish up everything and do everything for you at that point, it's kind of like, yo, you could have done that yourself. You just got to stop being lazy.
Exactly. There's a difference.
And with YouTube, you can learn.
Yeah.
You just got to sit down and do your 30 hours,
Yeah.
and you'll learn exactly what it really is.
Yeah.
How has social media impacted you now, where you're at right now, and what should we be looking at? Should we be looking at musically, or should we be looking at like Twitch as a new things? Because I know right now, like, I'm in the podcast world, and seeing what Joe Budden just signed their deal, the Joe Budden podcast, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I just signed up for and I want to announce this later, but I just signed up for a Google Seed Money account. So hopefully Google will contact me, and maybe I will work with Google. But
Yes.
until then, we keep pushing. Um, what should we start looking for out there in social media?
Well, so for me, social media is amazing. Like, I
Right.
wouldn't be where I'm at without it.
Right,
So
right.
I love it, even though everybody's always like,
People
like,
people love it and hate
there's
it,
a love-hate relationship.
but they will
I
be
still
on
love
their
it.
Instagram in about
Yeah.
20 minutes. They say, I hate Instagram. 10 minutes
Here I
later, they're
am.
scrolling.
Yeah.
Oh, you see them scrolling. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, I love it. I think social media, when used right, is great.
Yes.
There's obviously a lot of bullying and ugly things online that we should be more careful of. But
Right.
I love it. I think for me, it's been a great tool to be, successful in what I do.
Yeah.
To me, it's another great tool to connect people and, get connected myself and, be a connector, which is what I love doing. For future of things to look out, it really depends, like, what your lane is, of course.
You report, people say, stay in your lane, okay?
Yeah.
Stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane and what your goals are. But yeah. I think you always have to try these platforms and see
Right.
if that works for you and your audience. Somebody will be really great musically, but it will be horrible on Instagram, or it will be great on YouTube and horrible on Twitch. So it really has to be what you're trying to convey and what your audience likes. As far as the new platform, like TikTok is obviously bubbling right now,
Yes.
so that's a great one. But that's also for a younger demographic.
Yeah, the younger
So-
demographic, it's hard. Social media is like a young man's game to a certain extent.
Exactly.
It's to a certain extent, because whatever the kids are latching onto, like I see with Gary Vee will jump on some stuff and he'll be like, this is great, and next minute he's jumping on this.
And this,
He's got streaming.
Yeah, and that's what like me. You have to try everything. That's what I've always done. Since day one. Like I started back then with iMeme and High Five and all these other crazy accounts. And then now you look at my phone. My friends make fun of me because they're like, you literally have every app possible, and that's because I download every app and try it and see if it's good and see if it's gonna work for me and what I do.
And then you might delete it.
I tend to. But I do. I have like a billion. Or people are like, oh, I wish there was an app to this. I'm like, there is. It's called this. Look, and I have it on my phone.
One thing I love about you is that you are super like, yo, I'm not afraid to try new things. That's probably made you like move forward like crazy. What kind of advice can you give to a young person? Doesn't necessarily have to be a woman or anything like that. Just a young person who is maybe they just got their first job in the music industry. What kind of advice would you give them at this time?
So I would say, do your research.
Yes.
The internet's there 24/7. You can literally find an answer to anything.
Yeah.
And if it's not there, there's somebody you can message and ask.
Yeah.
So I think that's so important. I also get a lot of questions of things that you could have simply Googled and found the answer.
Yeah.
So that's always like, you can find out on the internet. And people, I think, sometimes take that for granted. So if you're just starting a job in the music industry, like, do your research on what it is that you're looking for, and then ask the questions. And don't be afraid to ask the questions, but make sure you've done your research so you don't sound stupid.
So, speaking of which, staying on that point and giving people advice that now you do speaking as well, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, how did you get started in speaking, and how was that speaking in front of people?
So I started, it was CMJ, which is no longer in New York. Well, it's no longer, festival in New York, a conference in New York, but it used to be really big. Mm-hmm. It was in Lower East Side, all of that downtown would be like great, like 3 or 4 days of panels and performances, and it was a really big thing. And so one time they were doing, I used to do a lot of things with live stream.
Okay.
A lot of performances, and it was a new technology at the time, a new tool, right?
Right.
So, like,
I had live stream. Yeah.
So we were, I think I was one of the first people to set up a live performance with a musician from the studio, and we had a live audience, and it was really cool interacting with fans all over the world. And we did it for a release day. So we did a panel with live stream. So that was my first panel speaking in public, and I loved it. I thought it was so cool to share my expertise, the little that I know, if I can pass it down. And that was my first one. And after that one, I got one to speak at South by. Like, they're like, hey, do you want to speak at South by on this? And
South by is dope. I haven't been yet, but a lot of my friends go, and they have a ball when they go.
It's always great, and you gotta eat a lot of great food. Very important.
Yes, you have a lot of itis walking around. Like, I don't really going to do anything right now, man. But we got to go to this concert, really?
Yeah.
Oh, this seat is everything.
Yes. After I eat my barbecue.
yes, exactly.
But and then I've been lucky to speak at universities. I've spoken at Harvard and George Washington. Princeton and other,
How was
amazing
that?
universities.
How did they receive you there? Did they were like, or did they give you like, yo, she really knows what she's doing?
Definitely that she really knows what she's doing, and it was interesting, like especially Harvard, because that was Harvard Business School, and it was a women in business panel.
Sweet.
So it was quite interesting, and the other panelists were in completely different industries, and so it's cool to see the difference in all these amazing industries, but all these great women doing amazing things.
That must have been a major networking moment for you right there.
Yeah, and it's great because there's finance and science and all these cool things that I admire so much.
Yes.
That and here I'm like promoting music, so
That is mage, yo. That is mage. That's something to hang your hat on right there, because you're interacting with people, executive levels of people on a different basis. And that's got to give you like a whole nother level of confidence when you're in a room with people like, look, I've been on this panel, I've worked with these people. Let's talk big business here.
Yeah.
And as a woman, especially women in this day and age, that's major. That's got to be like a big plus for you right there. Period. Just, you know what? Just being a young person,
Sure.
period. Not about the gender. Just young person
Sure.
to get to that level is got to be dope.
Yeah.
She's like, it's dope.
Yeah.
I really didn't think about it like that, Brian. It was just another day for me, but yeah, I totally get it.
No. I appreciate how cool and nice opportunity that I got to be able to speak on those panels. Not only with these amazing women, but like these very prestigious schools that students pay a lot of money to go there, and being able to share my knowledge with these students. And for me, it was interesting too, because at the end of these panels, like especially at Harvard, I remember after the end of it, like people come up to you,
right.
and I had so many people come up to me and they're like, I'm in school for science or something like completely not music related,
right.
but they're like, I've always wanted to do music. And the fact
so you become the conduit now at this point. Yeah.
So to me, that was so interesting, because they're like, oh, I'm in my 4th year of, like, I don't know.
Pre-med?
Yeah, like pre-med. I don't know.
You want to switch now? No,
Yeah,
God, no.
So to me, that was just so interesting. But to see these great minds that like see their brains spinning, right? Like, oh, what you just said makes sense, and why didn't I think of that before? Yeah, so it was quite interesting. But I enjoyed it, and I loved it, and I love speaking, and
dope.
I've been lucky. I've been able to like see the world because of speaking engagements. It's amazing.
Where's one of your favorite place to travel?
Ooh, I love Hong Kong.
Hong Kong?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say something like Madrid or something like that.
Well, I love Madrid too. But well, I think Hong Kong I love because it reminds me of New York. I think that's the really little dirty secret about Hong Kong, is that it reminds me of New York. So that's why I love it so much. But I mean, I love traveling. I can get on a plane at any time. I'm never without my passport. So yeah. So anytime I can go somewhere, I take the opportunity and go. Yeah.
Where do you think globally music is right now?
I think it's at probably its best times, because
I hear a lot of artists coming out of like in that European area. Like right now, Swiss just dropped this album, and he's got, I forgot the dude's name, but he's got a big artist that was on there. He's big in the UK right now.
Yeah.
And he was also on Drake's album.
Sure.
And he's coming. I can't remember his name for nothing right now, but his voice is very unique. It cuts through.
Yeah, I think we're at a great time for music because thanks to the internet, right? Like it doesn't matter where you are. You can have fans all over the world. You can reach them. You can collaborate with people from all over the world as well.
That's the power of social media, baby.
It's crossing over. Like I've been spending some time in South Africa, and the house music they have there, and also the type of hip hop they have there.
Afrobeat, right?
Yeah, the Afrobeats. Yeah, and like that's coming over here, and you're starting to hear that.
Oh, the Black Panther soundtrack was completely that. I was like, that was amazing.
And it's amazing soundtrack.
Yeah.
So to see that, to be able to like those are African artists, and you hear them here, and people are like the song stuck in their head, like that's great. And then you have like DJs like Black Coffee who's starting to bubble here, and like he has an amazing story. Like it's amazing to be able to see that.
When you get to that point where you got people like bubbling up and they're coming up, and it's like you're seeing all these stories. This is why I love podcasts, because I get to sit here with you and have this amazing, and we wouldn't know each other from Adam.
Right.
And all of a sudden now we're having this whole conversation, and we're relaying about music, and and you're telling your story, and that's what I love, and I think that's what the music is becoming like that. I think there's a lot of music out there that doesn't tell stories. There's a lot of filler music here. You just you hear it and you think about it, but I think that's where it's coming. I think a lot of people are telling their stories, and a lot of stuff's coming out there. I think from the global music world, there's going to be stories and stuff coming from that. It's amazing, yo. That is amazing that you've been over there and you've seen it for yourself. Where would you recommend someone who is in the business right now? Where would you tell them where to go? Maybe to go find where the new artists are bubbling up in the States. Like you might hear about, like, you know what, you might want to go check out this area.
As far as like what area of the country?
Yeah.
Definitely Atlanta has some good hip hop.
We're still going to Atlanta after all these years.
I mean, you can't go wrong from Atlanta. But you know, it's like in New York, there's so much amazing music too.
Yeah, man.
I mean, that's hard. Like, I feel like everywhere you find amazing music, you just really have to like dig in.
You got to go in there.
Yeah.
You got to immerse yourself in the culture.
Yeah, like go to a local, bar even and ask like who are you guys having perform? You know, you never know who you're gonna find, right? Like.
Never.
And it's cool to look back at like these bigger artists. Like I was just like the Coldplay. They just put out a movie and they show them playing at this tiny little bar.
Yeah, right. Man. I love Coldplay.
And like, and you're like, you could have been at that bar, and like now there's these huge superstars, right? And like, because you tried out something. So it's like you just never know where you're gonna find new music. So I think great music's everywhere, not specific to a region. You just really have to like pay attention and see like what's surrounding you.
That's what I was hoping you were gonna say. Like, it really is everywhere. There's no specific places bubbling up. It just happens to be that at that place's moment at that time.
Yeah, it's in somebody's bedroom right now.
Right. There's somebody literally probably down the street right now who makes amazing music. We just haven't heard it yet.
Exactly.
It's coming. It's coming.
Yes.
So, speak to me a little bit about your agency now. It's grown. Where do you want to see it? Where do you want it to go?
So my agency has been growing the past few years, which is amazing, and I'm so thankful for that.
What's the name of the agency?
JV Agency, which are my initials.
Yes. Let's make sure we got that right. I didn't want to just say it. I was like, let her say it. Yeah.
JV Agency. I mean, it's been growing in the music space, and also because digital changes so much, it's been growing in the influencer space.
Yes.
But I've been able to merge influencers with music in a really great way. So that's kind of the lane that we're going at now, where we're doing events with music and influencers and kind of bringing all creative fields together, really. And even with athletes, we just did something with the US Open, and we were able to do something with NFL, and which it's funny because I don't know sports that well. So wait. I've been able to combine it with music, which is my passion.
Okay.
Like,
I'm about to say if like, you know,
think
if
about it.
the tennis player walks up to you and he's like, you know, Sloane Stevens or something like that, he just walks up to you. I hope you know who that person is.
Yes.
Okay.
Like, again, always do my research, right?
Yeah.
So like I walked into the room knowing all about tennis, so now I know all about tennis. But you know, that's the thing. Like everybody loves music, so I was able to find a way to use music and those amazing athletes who are so talented and so dedicated to their craft and combine them. So
that combining music and athletes is natural progression, but it's beautiful when you find the right connections.
Yes.
That puzzle piece that you didn't force in there and it just fit perfectly is, I don't even know how to explain it to you guys, but you guys see it all the time. Hence LeBron James, hence a bunch of people in the industry. If you see them connect with the right people at the right time, the music and everything else, it just works. It just works.
Yeah.
It just works. Now, that must have been like a real interesting thing to be around that and see that happening. Are you elated about that? Like, it's just like an amazing feeling for you right now?
Oh yeah, it's amazing because I never thought like, oh, I'd be working with the US Open, right?
Yeah.
Like it never crossed my mind.
Right.
Now that it has, it's like it's an amazing experience. And like I said, being able to find a way to work music into it where I'm still doing what I love and now like just incorporating other things into it.
Right.
That's what makes it amazing. Yeah.
So what's the next step for you now that you have your own agency, you're rolling? What do you think is the couple of things that you see on the table for basically what do you see on the table for yourself? Where do you think you want to go the next 5 or 6 years, if you've thought that far ahead?
Sure. Yeah. No. Yeah. I definitely have.